What's up everybody, this is Andrew with Medic Made Easy, and in this video we're going to cover cranial nerves. We're going to cover the 12 cranial nerves, the order of them, how to remember them, how to remember whether they're sensory nerves, motor nerves, or a little bit of both. So in order, the first cranial nerve is the olfactory nerve, the second one optic nerve, third oculomotor nerve, fourth trochlear nerve, fifth trigeminal nerve, sixth abducens nerve, 7 is the facial nerve, 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve, 9 glossopharyngeal nerve, 10 vagus nerve, 11 spinal accessory nerve, or just the accessory nerve depending on which book you use, and 12 is the hypoglossal nerve. So for starters, we need to know the 12 cranial nerves and remembering them in order. The mnemonic that I learned, or the phrase that I learned, was, "Oh, once one takes the anatomy final, very good vacations sound heavenly." And that gives you the first letter of each of the 12 cranial nerves in order. So remember that goofy little saying, and that'll help you out. The 11th one for spinal accessory, again, you can use sound or R for S or A, depending on if your book calls it the spinal accessory nerve or just the accessory nerve. Now, little phrases like this, this is just the one that I learned, and so it's stuck in my head, and I've been using it ever since. But you can find others out there with varying degrees of appropriateness and vulgarity and whatever you want. But whichever one works, whichever one clicks for you, use it, ignore all the others, and just start building that muscle memory for you. Now that we've got the 12 cranial nerves in order, we need to remember their functions, whether they're sensory, motor, or a little bit of both. So another silly little phrase for you, the one I remembered, and again, the first letters are going to indicate whether it's S for sensory, M for motor, or B for both. The phrase is, "Some say marry money, but my brother says big brains matter more." Again, tons of them out there. That's the one that I remembered, been using it ever since, so feel free to use it or go find another one that works for you. Alright, so now going through each of the cranial nerves individually, we have the first one, cranial nerve number 1, is the olfactory nerve. Again, this is a sensory nerve, and the primary function is smell. Cranial nerve 2 is the optic nerve, another sensory nerve, and its primary function is sight. It's the optic nerve coming out the back of the eyeball, going over to the occipital region of the brain. Third is the oculomotor nerve. Its type is motor, and the function or the way to assess it would be to check pupil response. Let's get that pen light out and check, see how the pupils react. Fourth is the trochlear nerve. Its function is eye movement, so have the patient follow your finger moving just their eyes as you assess their movement. Now, fifth is the trigeminal nerve, which is the first one that we're going to talk about that has a bit of both motor and sensory functions. So on the motor side, the trigeminal nerve controls the blink reflex. And on the sensory side, you can assess your patient's ability to differentiate between hot and cold, or pain or pressure stimulus to the face. 6 is the abducens nerve, which is a motor nerve. It's very similar to cranial nerve 4, trochlear nerve, in that it's all about eye movement, whereas the trochlear nerve is just that the eyes can move. The abducens nerve is that the eyes move in a coordinated manner. So if the patient looks up, both eyes look up the same amount. They look to the side, they look to the side the same amount. Cranial nerve 7 is the facial nerve. It has both motor and sensory functions, so it really allows for full movement of the face. So if your patient can smile, raise their eyebrows, really move their face, it's the facial nerve that's working. It also controls the sense of taste. Moving right along, cranial nerve 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve. It's a sensory nerve all about hearing. Number 9 is the glossopharyngeal nerve. It controls both your gag reflex and the ability to swallow. Cranial Nerve X is the vagus nerve. It also controls the ability to swallow and speak, heavily tied in with the parasympathetic nervous system. We start talking some of our paramedic pharmacology later. Drugs like atropine that act on the vagus nerve by blocking its effects. Cranial Nerve XI is the spinal accessory nerve, or just the accessory nerve, depending on the book you're using. It is a motor nerve. It's actually not a cranial nerve at all. They thought it was initially, which is why it's in the list, but it's actually a spinal nerve. It allows the patient to shrug their shoulders and turn their head side to side. Last but not least is Cranial Nerve XII, the hypoglossal nerve. It is a motor nerve whose function allows the patient to stick out their tongue and move it side to side. It's really motor control of the tongue. Now, if you're looking at this long list of cranial nerves wondering where do I start, the best place to start is going to just be remembering all 12 of them, followed by whether they're motor, sensory, or both. Then I would start looking at which of the cranial nerves impact our ABCs. So things like Cranial Nerve X, the vagus nerve, when you stimulate it, the patient is going to go bradycardic. The hypoglossal nerve, Cranial Nerve XII, which is really motor control of the tongue, right? It's certainly going to be a big implication on airway management. Cranial Nerve IX, the glossopharyngeal nerve, again, gag reflex, huge on airway management. So that's where I would start. Again, get the order down, get their functions down, and then look at which of those cranial nerves are going to impact your ABCs first, and then push further from there. So that's our quick review of the 12 cranial nerves. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, as always, I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on social media at MedicMadeEasy, or shoot me an email. Thank you and have a great day.